Welcome to Heart in Hand, the podcast that's stuck at home. This week on Heart in Hand, but we've always got Scottish football to give us something to talk about. So welcome to Heart in Hand, the Rangers podcast. My name's David Edgar. I am your host as always. And joining me this week is the master of mellifluous, melodic magnificence, Mr. Martyn Ramsey.
Good evening, David. How are you doing?
I'm fine, considering.
Practicing alliteration there.
I do like a bit of alliteration. I do. The two. I think it's Viz. I think it's been a reader of Viz since a child. But the two things I'm a sucker for are alliteration and rhyming. Ever since the cartoon strip Bertie Blunt, his parrot's a cunt, which I still maintain is up there with Shakespeare, really, in terms of British cultural import. So yeah, those are the two things that get me going. Really, we're here as a bit of a roundup show, Martyn. As listeners will know, we will be putting out content throughout the hiatus, I suppose is the right word for it. And every so often what we're going to do, we'll be bringing you stuff from our Patreon site. We'll bring in you exclusives. We had the Alex McLeish interview a couple of weeks ago, but we'll do a roundup every couple of weeks because, as mentioned at the start, Scottish football does tend to throw up discussion points, even, and I use that term advisedly, even when there is no football ongoing. And we're seeing that at the moment with a lot of things going on. Firstly, will the league be called? And by that, I mean, will it be abandoned? Will it be postponed until football starts up again? Will Celtic be awarded the title? Will the leagues be reconstructed? Will we be looking at a 14-team league next season? We don't know at this point. And of course, what's been going on in the background with Rangers after an independent investigation, and certainly do seem to have some validity to that. Where do we begin, Martyn? Let's then, I think, bring everyone up to date. I'm sure that they are following it, unless they've lost the will to live following this, which I would understand. No, you couldn't blame people if they just decided I'm gonna have a sensible hobby now, like frog licking or something, because this is just crazy talk. The latest situation is, of course, that the SPFL have claimed that there's no need for an independent investigation into the processes of the vote for their resolution, which was passed eventually, because they employed Deloitte, an audit firm, to look into it, and they have given them a clean bill of health. However, when you look beyond the headlines of independent investigation and everything was above board, you then think, well, what were the terms of reference? And the terms of reference for it were very, very narrow indeed. Basically, Deloitte were employed to have a look at what happened to Dundee's email. And they confirmed that it was sent at a certain time. It arrived it was then quarantined, which can happen. Anybody who's worked in an office will tell you that with a big IT system will tell you that is a possibility. And then it was released, and Deloitte confirmed this. Rather missing the point somewhat, that we knew this. Yeah. No one really disputes this. This is not what Rangers are discussing, and Rangers clarified that. They had a statement on Friday evening in which they listed 7 points that they would like an independent review to look at, all of which seemed quite sensible, Martyn. The statement is on the website, for the Rangers website, for those of you who haven't seen it. It's not really cleared anything up. I know what the SPFL are doing. If I was advising them, it's what I would have done, because you want to be able to say we've had an independent investigation and hope nobody looks slightly deeper. It's classic Nixonian. I've investigated this, and trust me, it's all good. It doesn't really answer the questions by the people who are posing them.
No, it doesn't. They must just be buying time. I don't think there's any way, surely, that they thought that was going to be enough. The quality of Scottish football's internal investigations are becoming a bit worrying. At least we got a report quickly in this one.
Suspiciously quickly, sometimes.
Yeah, well, given the...
Do you know that when you phone up like a Chinese and it arrives after 10 minutes and you go, you didn't have time to cook that. That was sitting there. It's like that. That's what this investigation was. A worryingly early food delivery.
Well, you're correct in saying, though, the terms of reference were that narrow that it wouldn't have taken very long to finish it. There's no conspiracy theory here. Deloitte's are not. They're too big to be nobbled by the Machiavellian mastermind Peter Lawwell. They will, but you know yourself, they can only do what they're asked to do. That isn't an independent one. So I'm not entirely sure what they were hoping to do, other than just continue to buy time, continue to just kick the can down the road, effectively. Rangers continue to be steadfast in asking for a wider one, because you're right, it didn't tell us anything we didn't know. We know that Dundee voted no, and the email wasn't received or seen or noticed or whatever. But it's what changed that no vote to an email saying, actually don't count that. And what happened in that intervening period? Why on earth an incomplete vote was published with this supposed 5 o'clock deadline that didn't actually exist? It's about the decision-making process and about who was able to put pressure effectively after the final whistle had blown. Because we talked about this a couple of weeks ago when everything was up in the air. It was the Saturday after the vote. And I think both of us are realists, and we understand the politicking and the deal making that goes on behind the scenes in Scottish football and any sporting association and any government. That's how it works. But there has to become a point where a vote is a vote. And so there are governances which Rangers have been consistently banging on about. There are huge governance issues here that allowed this shambles that would embarrass Putin, never mind any kind of banana republic. And we need to get to the bottom of how that was allowed to happen, who was involved in the shenanigans, and ultimately leading to the removal of Neil Doncaster, which I imagine is what Rangers really want here, because they cannot, as much as I support the people involved, that their job's almost impossible when you have such high-placed stooges there. You can only get going, you can only start making inroads politically when you can remove some of these guys. So that would appear to be the aim. They're absolutely right in holding back what they say they have. And they'd be well minded if they can pressure a proper independent investigation with a wide remit, submitting what they have and leaving them to it.
Yeah, I think that's maybe been one of the things that could have been communicated better, and that it was highly unlikely that Rangers were ever going to win this, or the side of it, that Rangers were ever going to win this vote and stop this. And I think a lot of our fans got disappointed, because I think that we maybe looking back should have made that clearer. I think that, look, if there are enough votes for this, and there are, then it's going to go through. So there's not really much you can do. That's democracy. You lose votes. It can happen. And that was always the likely outcome. What, as you mentioned, is clearly wrong is the fact that we have these issues that need addressed, firstly. And these are all things that the SPFL have kind of rather clumsily allowed to become public. Firstly, that there is the whole farrago around Dundee's vote. Why were they allowed to change their vote? Why was who spoke to them? Why did Neil Doncaster speak to other clubs before this 5 o'clock deadline and tell them, in the case of Aberdeen, that their vote was no longer needed because there were already the numbers through? Why did they release a statement 43 minutes after this deadline that wasn't really a deadline when they didn't even have all the votes in? What were the briefing papers put to clubs? What was anything told to the clubs that wasn't true, because it would appear that there were mechanisms to distribute funds, because then you get into the area where if clubs were told something that wasn't true, then that's different from politicking. And as Martyn mentioned there is nothing wrong with the league trying to get people to vote for the resolution that they think is the right one. We can debate whether or not we agree that it's the right one or why they think it's the right one. Those are different issues. But there is nothing wrong with the organisation saying, we think you should vote for this, and trying to push you along to that. What would be wrong would be the chief executive of an organisation, for example, lying to the member clubs and saying that something was black when it was in fact white. And that's what needs to be looked at. And Rangers are obviously keen to get it pushed forward. Slightly surprised media reaction, or I'm surprised, Martyn, at the media reaction. Well, there's obviously you're going to get your kind of on the payroll people from that are pushing the other side of the other side of the fence argument. But there's a lot of people who are no friends of Rangers who this is just so obviously corrupt and venal that even they are saying, no, hang on a minute here, we need to have a serious look at this.
Yeah, because it was so bad, and because they've made such a mess of it, and that tells you everything you need to know about this situation. Some of the voices, you're absolutely right, no friends of Rangers by any stretch of the imagination, but still are. Well, they still have their own public image to think about, and even they can't defend this kind of shit show. And football writers, football pundits of any stripe and in any country, they do like a pop at governing associations whenever they can. So I don't think they'd be too reticent to do that whenever the chance come up. So yeah, there's not a lot of hiding place for anyone who has the slightest bit of professional integrity. Obviously, there are some who lost that remaining fig leaf many years ago.
On the evidence that Rangers have, which they've consistently stated they will submit to an independent inquiry, but they will not submit to the SPFL because you don't give whistleblower information to the people that blow the whistle on, and that's understandable. My concern with it, Martyn, is the longer it goes, the more this expectation builds. This evidence has to be phenomenally good.
Yes and no. I don't. I appreciate the way it's been built up. Oh, you don't know what we've got in our box, kind of thing. Will build a big narrative. It has, and therefore builds a lot of expectation. And you're going to get a smoking gun that's going to shatter Scottish football. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think it needs to happen though. This is actually quite a dull affair. This is about rules and about administration, really. You don't really have to have anything too salacious and too. It's not going to get the tabloids going, I don't imagine, and therefore will not get a lot of fans in either revolt or triumph. It might just be quite technical, but that's all it needs to be. But it needs to be there. It needs. Listen, like Scottish football is, there's so much utter junk around it, so much noise around it. The rules were either broken or they were not. That was either a legitimate vote, in which case, fine, we move on. As you rightly said earlier, Rangers should have no hope of expecting to win that in the first place, given the current political landscape. But it was either a legitimate vote or it was not. And we need to know, because there's clearly some unanswered questions there, some really big issues around it that we need to flesh out. And we've either got something that can do that or we don't. And if we don't, then that is going to backfire a wee bit in terms of optics. But also, we only have to have reason to question. You don't raise a complaint or a concern all the time because you know the answer. A legitimate concern, a legitimate request for a proper investigation only has to come from a particular perspective. And if we're missing something that makes everything all of a sudden seem legitimate, then fair enough. I'd have thought that would have been brought to the table a hell of a long time ago, right enough. But Rangers only have to be able to establish a point of concern. That given what we have, given what we know, this is very worrying indeed. Therefore, we need someone else to come out and look at it. But I guess that doesn't get a lot of clicks.
No. And as I say, you're right, in a normal sort of run-of-the-mill business investigation, that is true. But in this case, because of the way the situation is, that there is a burden of proof thing. And I think that, Rangers have built up this. And if they were to suggest that, oh, no, we didn't, we just said we had the evidence, it's not our fault that people began to believe it was something sensational, then I think you're getting into the areas of kind of willful naivety there. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying they're doing that, by the way. I'm just saying that it wouldn't be an acceptable answer. It just wouldn't wash. And again, it's the realpolitik of the situation as opposed to what should be. We're dealing very much in what is, but it's got more to run. So we'll come back to this, I'm sure, the next time we do one of these. The next sort of major area of discussion for Rangers fans, Martyn, and I suppose it's the same for fans at all clubs, is finance. And that is, firstly and primarily, this is the time of year when season ticket renewal forms would be out. This is, of course, an exceptional year. There are no games currently being played, and there's no fixed dates for when football fans will be allowed back into stadiums to watch their team, certainly in large numbers, certainly at top level, certainly for a club like ours. And in most businesses, you can't really ask customers to pay for something that you not only don't know if you'll be able to give it, but when you'll be able to give it, or vice versa, rather. So there is that, but equally, there is, we need money. We've got, bills to pay, and the club do need to bring finances in. And I've found, speaking to fans about this over the last few weeks, that it's quite an emotive issue with supporters because of the amount of identity that they place in a season ticket that we all do. That's one of the reasons it's how it's marketed. It's something, it's about your connection to your club. It's about your place at the stadium, all of those things. There is an emotional pull to it. And it is going to be quite a difficult situation over the next few weeks, not just for Rangers, but for all clubs to manage.
It is. Being involved in communications or marketing at any football club at the minute, I don't think it's particularly enviable. Luckily, we don't know anyone that's in.
No, we don't know anyone. He certainly hasn't aged in the month that we've that he's been doing it. No, that's true.
Because you're right. We're effectively, we don't know what we're selling. No idea what we're selling. Everything's up in the air at the moment. I don't think you can assume that we'll be back at Ibrox this year. We'd hope so, but I don't think you can make that absolute certain assumption. The lockdown will be lifted, but social distancing won't for quite a while, I wouldn't have thought.
All the talk is, that we'll get football back going again, but in terms of having 50,000 people together watching it, not until there's a vaccine.
And even the behind closed doors or limited, there's still a huge amount of hurdles to be passed before that's really a thing. From UEFA down, there's so much denialism around this situation, I think, and the idea that this can be done very neatly and we can play out the season and then get back again. Certainly football as we know it in 2020, certainly before the autumn, I think it's for the birds. Any kind of talk like that. So in April, getting into May, every football club, you're right, but especially the big ones, they have no idea what they're selling. I guess you've kind of got to be up front about it. Everyone knows what we're actually selling, and it's a requirement to keep the club running. And Rangers, because of recent history, again, a marketing challenge to get that message across. It shouldn't be a difficult message to get across because it's common sense and everyone's in the same boat. But you don't want to invite a lot more unhelpful and unwanted speculation about, I don't know what admin we're on now, David, according to some, but you know what I mean. It's a difficult one for us to pitch, maybe more than anyone else. But it's just common sense. There are costs that still need to be met. So you come under the guise of a season ticket, but I don't know how many games you're going to get for it. And it's a really, really difficult one. Clearly, there are a lot of people affected by the current economic situation that may not be in a place to make a season ticket a priority. But if you know our support, there are a lot of what other people would call normal priorities that are pushed well below Rangers, so the people just find a way. And there might be some just on principle say, well, what am I actually getting here?
Is there a possibility then that it can be simplified to people who can pay, either because they aren't too badly affected by this, or that they can scrape together the cash and they just, as you say, they're those guys that have to, they can't not have even for a few weeks the season ticket, can't be out and they can't have it. That these people will pay, and those who unfortunately aren't in a position at the moment won't, and that really is just the long and the short of it.
Yeah. You mentioned the word emotive earlier, and that's really it. You're not going to see a lot of football in the way that we would normally consume it for a fair amount of time. So emotive in one sense, that right, especially what we've come through, we've an acute sense of responsibility to financially keep the club going. So there's an emotive pull there. But again, quite a rational one that this cannot continue. This is an unprecedented situation, and we need the support of the fans to just keep going until we can get back to normal. I'm not so sure you could call it a season ticket though. It's more of a bit of generosity or a loan or whatever else. But it's
keep the car running.
Yeah, it's exactly that. That's why it will be a challenge. But you're right, not just for Rangers, because clubs don't want to come out and be absolutely stark about it.
No, and it is understandable because it's affecting everyone. Everyone is that this is a worldwide issue. I was speaking to one of our fans in Australia the other day about doing a podcast, and he was saying, yeah, we're in lockdown, and everything that we're going through, they're going through, and it does bring it home to you, the international scale of this crisis. It's enormous, and in a way, as I'm sure we've all saw people online, whenever you have the temerity to discuss football or TV or something, there are unfortunately people who have got far more serious issues to be concerned about at the moment. On that, it's a difficult one when somebody comes at you, when you maybe mention something like, I watched this TV show, or I didn't particularly care for this album, or what, when are we going to get back to playing football, that you do get people who seem to live on social media to jump on you, Martyn, at that point, to say there are people dying. They're sort of like the priority police.
Mm-hmm.
I've spoken to a few people about this, and it's kind of like you feel really guilty for a bit, but I'm not sure we should, and I don't mean that in a negative way. Of course it's not as important, but these are important things to us in our lives, and if it just helps you get through the day at the moment, I don't really see the harm, unless you are, suggesting that the NHS shouldn't be funded so football can be. I don't really see why it does any harm to come out and say, I'm missing football.
Yeah, I mean, it's that whole thing about being able to hold more than one thought in your head at any one time. These things that were important to us a couple of months ago still will be. It only becomes a matter for the priority police. If you ever had to choose between one or the other, that's literally what priorities mean. And you're also able to spend your day thinking about different things. If you were thinking about the people who sadly lost their lives or out of work, you wouldn't get out of bed. So, yeah, those and they are trolls, because that seems to be the only point of their online existence. Should they really be on Twitter because there are people in trouble?
That's a good. Actually, yeah, I'm going to use that. Martyn has given you all an answer, folks. Whenever people say that, say you're absolutely right. What you're doing on Twitter.
Put your phone away. At this point. There's no app there that's of any importance to compared to someone's loss of life. So there's no point in no point in communicating anymore. No, it's silly. Arrigo Sacchi called it, the most important of the least important things, and he's absolutely right. You're allowed to miss things about normality. Football, wider, or your club. Although, I do remember coming out of Ibrox after Hamilton, so I'm not overly convinced by that argument still at the minute. But we talk about it every day still. It does consume your lives, and that's fine. Your lives are there to be filled by things, and it can be filled by many different things, and you're able to switch from one to the other. And for those who have lost loved ones, for those who have lost their job, that won't be a pressing issue in their mind. But at some point, they will need to break away. People do deal with grief and deal with difficult circumstances by having another outlet, as long as it's a healthy one, because there are far less healthy outlets than being a bit of a nerd about a particular sport for you to kind of fill that time. So yeah, we do miss normality, and I think that's absolutely fine.
Right, folks, thank you very much for joining us. All that remains is to thank our executive producers, even in London, Mike Lee and Paul Myers, to thank my guest, the wonderful Martyn Ramsey.
Pleasure, David.
And to encourage you, if you are finding things a little bit dull at the moment and trying to find time to occupy yourself, and you're not a subscriber on our Patreon, then go and have a look. It's just $1.99 per month, and from that you will be able to get hours and hours of content, lots of it to do with Rangers, of course, Rangers history. Martyn is starting a new show this week, in fact. Go on, plug it.
Starts tomorrow with Adam Thornton, our tactics expert on the site, and we will be looking at all 7 of the Rangers treble-winning seasons with a guest who is there to make the case for that particular season being recognised above the rest. You're slated to come in, David, later on. James Forrest will be joining us to talk about 48-49. That lands tomorrow morning. We're lucky enough to be talking with the Rangers historian David Mason for next week's show on that Scott Simon side of the early 60s, and of course 63, 64 in particular. So a new way to enjoy this hiatus. We have a Euro 96 time capsule series coming that will coincide with the proper dates and ITV's release of every single game in that tournament. But as David says, there are plenty of other non-Rangers, non-football shows just to pass the time when, of course, you're not thinking about the end of it.
Of course. So come along and join us. Hey, if you don't like it was only $1.99, and if you do, you can join the community over there. Thank you to everyone for listening. As I say, we will be back, of course, next week, and we'll be back with a roundup of what's been going on as soon as anything concrete develops. But thank you for listening to us. We'll be back soon. Take care. Bye-bye.